بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, my dear respected and viewers, we begin our session and today our first session to speak about the ilm al-mantiq, knowledge of mantiq. In English we call it formal and logic, and we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us inshaAllah ta'ala with the understanding. May Allah bless us in your tawfiq and hidayah, and bless us with goodness in dunya and akhirah. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. So for our first session, what we will do is that I will discuss on the Mabadi Ashara, the 10 principles of mantiq. And these 10 principles, basically it is to give us an introduction of a particular subject in terms of its definition, the benefits, the contents of the knowledge, the one who established knowledge, and so on and so forth. As what inshaAllah ta'ala later on we will see to it. So this is basically what you see in the screen. It is the Mabadi Ashara, which is written by Al-Imam Al-Sabban. Let me adjust a few things first. So this is the Mabadi Ashara. So this is what inshaAllah ta'ala will cover. Al-Imam Al-Sabban, and he mentioned Mabadi Al-Ashara li kulli ilmin, the foundations, the 10 principles for every knowledge. Inna mabadi'a kulli fannin ashara. Al-haddu wal-mawdu'u thumma samara. ونسبة وفضله والواضع والاسم الاستمداد حكم شارع مسائل والبعض بالبعض اكتفى ومن درى الجميع حاز الشرفا. So these are basically the 10 principles mentioned in this particular poem. So inshallah we'll go through one by one. The first which is very important of these 10 principles is what is mentioned as al-had. If you see here, if you see this, the first one, he said al-haddu, then followed by wal mawdu'u thumma thamara. So al-had basically it means definition. Basically it means any definition. So what we are going to do now is to understand what is the definition of the knowledge of mantiq. This is the first thing. Knowledge of al-mantiq. And there are two definitions of mantiq. We have a definition in terms of its content, and we have any definition in terms of its fruits or benefits. So the first definition, as you can see in the screen, this is the definition in terms of the content of ilm al-mantiq, meaning what do you study in this particular knowledge. So he said ilmun yubahathu fihi anil ma'lumati تصورية والتصديقية من حيث إنها توصل إلى مجهول تصوري أو تصديقي. The knowledge of mantiq, it is a knowledge discusses about apprehensive and affirmative information and how it leads to uncover their unknown domains. So this is the definition of the knowledge of mantiq. So basically, there are two things here. Number one, we have what is called the tasawwuriyah. This is apprehension. And tasdiqiyah, it is the affirmative. These are the two main topics in the knowledge of mantiq, which in the West they call it formal logic. So they speak about the importance of understanding definition, and for example, when comes to the apprehension, and then they speak about propositions and affirmation, and then after that it is the chapter of syllogism. So the knowledge of mantiq in our Islamic heritage, it is about the same. Where we speak about the importance of ta'rif in the first part, to have a clear tasawwur, to have a clear understanding of a particular word, and then also we speak about qadiyah. That is the proposition, to understand any propositions, which is called qadiyah. And then after that we speak about qiyas, that is a syllogism, where we will study about premises of an argument and the conclusion. So what I will do, I will sketch for you, inshallah. See, I will get something to give some examples inshallah. So as what I mentioned, we have knowledge. We have the knowledge of mantiq. Sorry. This is based on the definition earlier. So number one, we have the chapter of tasawwurat. Or tasawwur. Then number two, we have tasdiq. These are the two main chapters of mantiq that we will study. So when it comes to tasawwur, we learn about the importance of definition. Why any importance of definition? Because, for example, when you have a word, for example, democracy. So if you have a word like this, so in order for you to understand, to not to make any mistake in thinking, it is important to get the definition correct. So by not having the correct definition, you do not understand the meaning. So once you do not understand the meaning, your tasawwur, your apprehension of this particular word is wrong, is false, because of not understanding any definition. So knowledge in your mantiq will tell us about how are we able to differentiate between a good definition and a bad definition. So to understand this, to understand this, we study something that is called Kulliyah Khamsa. Kulliyah Khamsa. Basically, the meaning of Kulliyah Khamsa is the 5 universal laws, yani of definition, of making any a definition. So this is the first part of mantiq, that is tasawwur. Then we have the second part of mantiq, that is called tasdeeq. So once you understand definition, when we go back to tasdeeq, we speak about something that is called qadiyah. Qadiyah is basically, we call it proposition. Preposition. Or we call it a sentence. We have a sentence. Sentence that makes up of the subject and the predicate. So, for example, we say the universe is contingent. The universe is contingent. So this is an example of a qadiyah, of a sentence that has what we call it mawdu', which is the subject and the predicate. Now this makes a complete sentence. We have the universe, and we have the word contingent. So the first part the universe. Now this goes back to tasawwur. It goes back into tasawwur. Contingent goes back into tasawwur. And then we have the thing that is binding. Binding between the subject and the predicate. In logic they call it the copula, if not mistaken. The thing that binds. This is also part of tasawwur. So the universe is contingent. So all this is called qadiyah. It's called qadiyah. So when it comes to qadiyah, there's always the question that it is subjected to false and truth. So for example, if I make this statement, the universe is contingent. The universe is contingent. This is a statement, qadiyah. It is subjected to be truth, subjected to be false. So how do I prove this statement? So then I need to have an argument. I need to have something that in logic we call it argument. To prove that this statement is correct. When it comes to argument, there are a few things. We have the premise, and we have the conclusion. So I will give an example, inshallah. I will just erase this. Yes. So I will give an example of an argument. And before we go to some many of the English and terminologies. In Arabic we call it qiyas. We call it qiyas. In English we call it syllogism. What is the meaning of qiyas? Yani a qiyas is what is called an argument. So for qiyas, we need to have any premise. For example, premise 1, premise 2, and then we have conclusion. So if the first premise is correct, second premise is correct, the conclusion also must be correct. This is called a deductive argument. Deductive, an argument that is deductive. So here comes the example. So I will use any example as what mentioned by our ulama. Usually. This is my first time trying out this way of teaching. I hope it works, inshallah. So now, for example, we say the universe is subjected to change. Everything that is subjected to change is contingent. Okay, this is the first premise. This is the second premise. The first premise says that the universe is subjected to change. So this is a qadiyya. This is a statement. It's called a premise in the qiyas. Is this sentence correct? Yes, and we say it is correct. The universe is subjected to change. This can be understood by our observation. The coming of night and day, the change in weather, and so on and so forth. Everything that is subjected to change is contingent. Yani when something is subjected to change, it has a beginning. The meaning of contingent here is hadith. In Aqidah, we call it hadith. So what is the conclusion? So now we have the first premise, we have the second premise. So what is the conclusion? What is the conclusion? The conclusion is the universe is contingent. So I will write the conclusion here. The conclusion the universe is contingent. So if you look at this process, you have the first premise, and you have the first premise, you have the second premise, and then you have this conclusion. So this is what is called, in mantiq, we call it qiyas. In English, it is named as syllogism. And it is an argument. So, whenever the logicians speaks about argument, what they mean is an argument that has premises and conclusion. So this is the chapter of tasdeeq. Earlier I mentioned that there is tasawwur and there is tasdeeq. So if you go back to the definition, ilmun yubhasu fihi anil ma'lumati tasawwuriyah wa tasdiqiyah. So this tasdeeq consists of qiyas, qadiyah, and also qiyas. Min haythu innaha tusilu, that it will reach, that it leads to, ila majhulin tasawwuri aw tasdiqi, to uncover their unknown domain. So whenever you have the premises and you have a sound argument with the sound conclusion, so it increase in affirmation, because of these evidences that are present, that we are able to come to affirmation, tasdeeq. So all this requires evidences that is portrayed in the premises. So let me write again, to get a better picture, inshallah. Basically what I'm doing is to explain the definition. We are still speaking about al-had. So the thing about mantiq, that's what we mentioned, there are two things, tasawwur and tasdeeq. So we have under tasawwur, we have principles and objectives. Number 1, number 2. And then under tasdeeq, same thing. We have principles and objectives. What is the principles of tasawwur? It is called kulliyah khamsa, the 5 general rules. Objectives is ta'rifat, to understand definitions. As for tasdeeq, the principles is qadaya, the plural of qadiyah, to understand sentences, prepositions. The objective is qiyas, to understand argument. So it is important when we study mantiq, we have to understand this connection. If you look we have any tasawwur, kulliyah khamsa, ta'rifat, and then under tasdiq any we have qadaya, and we have qiyas. So the first thing is to understand ta'rifat, definitions. How do we understand definitions? Kulliyah khamsa are the tools that will help you to make a good definition. So let me give you an example, and we do it slowly, inshallah. I will just take note. I will speak about this first. Okay. Okay, I go here. Okay, let me give you an example, a simple example of al-insan. All of us, we know the meaning of al-insan. Al-insan, al-insanu. Okay, if I ask the question, what is the definition of al-insan? Yani, if you go back to books of logic, mantiq, definition of insan is al-hayawan, al-hayawanu natiq. This is the definition of insan, ya jama'ah. Al-hayawanu an-natiq. And surprisingly, the first person who gave this definition is Aristotle. He said that human beings are an intellectual animal. Can you imagine it? Yani in Arabic, it is more profound and easier to understand, because the word hayawan, this word hayawan, the meaning of hayawan in the Arabic language is anything that has haya, that lives on the face of this earth. So that is why we say insan is part of hayawan. Animals are part of hayawan because there is haya, there is life. Natiq means intellect. Natiq means intellect. So the meaning of insan is an intellectual being. So this is called ta'rif to al-had. This is al-had, ta'rif. So let me explain any further. Now we look at the word hayawan. We look at the word hayawan. Remember, just now when we mentioned the ta'rif of insan is hayawanu natiq. Hayawanu an-natiq. So we have the word hayawan. Hayawan. Under hayawan, we have many, members. For example, lion. Tigers. Human. And we have dogs. So the list goes on. We have cats. All these are hayawan, correct or not? Lion is hayawan, tigers in hayawan, human in hayawan, dogs hayawan, cats in hayawan. So we say that these are the jinns that shares the same classification. That is, all of them all of them yani are considered yani to be hayawan. طيب. Then yani we go back yani to, when we go back yani to human beings, under human being, we also have some differences. For example, human beings, there are Malays, Indians, Europeans, and so on. So when we look at this definition, when we look at this hayawan, if the essence of the members are different, it is called jins, the genus, and in English we call it the genus. If the essence are the same, yani Malays, Indians, Europeans, and basically all of them are humans. They are the same in terms of essence. Yani we call it naw'un. So when we want to do any definition, we always have to pay attention to al-jins. We have to pay attention al-jins. On top of hayawan, we have for example, substance. All hayawan is a substance. All hayawan is a substance, and it comes from a substance. And under hayawan, we have all these jins. And under each of this part of hayawan, we have the types, the noun. So when we define human beings, we have to use the genes that is nearest. This hayawan, we say it is genus. Substance is genus. So when I want to define human beings, I have to use the nearest genes, that is hayawan. I cannot use any substance. So in mantiq we say this is jinsun qarib. Hayawan is jinsun qarib. This is jinsun ba'in. So when I define human beings, I use the word hayawan, and I cannot use the word substance, because if I use the word substance, that is a shortcoming in definition. So now I get the meaning of hayawan, that human beings are hayawan. But what is the thing that differentiate between human beings and tigers and lions? So then we have something that is called al-fasl. Al-fasl. The differentiating the things that differentiate. So in order for me to differentiate between human beings and tigers and lions and dogs, what is the thing that differentiate human beings from other types of the hayawan? That human beings are intellectual. So how I define is that I use jinsun qarib, and I use al-fasl. I use a fasl to differentiate between all other members in the class of hayawan. So that is how I get the definition of hayawan an-natiq. So this is basically the part of tasawwuf. So al-jins, al-fasl is part of kulliyatul khamsa. So kulliyatul khamsa teach me how to do a proper definition. So the objectives of understanding Kulliyatul Khamsa, it is I need to understand any ta'rif, the definition. So once I understood the Kulliyatul Khamsa, yani the principles of tasawwur, then only I can understand the objective. And this is the reason why you study the chapter of tasawwur. We study Kulliyatul Khamsa, and then our objective is to get any ta'rif. So once we get the correct ta'rif, now it is the time to go into the chapter of tasdeeq. And the principle of tasdeeq is al-qadaya. The plural of qadiyya. So it is a sentence. It is a sentence. So as what I mentioned earlier, the example of a sentence, we say the universe is subjected to change. This is a qadiyya. So if the qadiyya is correct, then I have to prove the points. So in order to do so, I have to use evidences. And that is where we go into the chapter of qiyas, and we construct our premises to come out with a sound conclusion. So this is what is meant by a sound argument. When you have good premise that are truthful, and you get the conclusion that is based on truth. So this is basically what we will study in mantiq. So we study kulliyatul khams, ta'rifat, qadaya, and qiyas. So what is the reason? We study tasawwur and tasdeeq? This is where the definition of mantiq explains. Definition of mantiq is what we see here. He said it is a field of knowledge that discusses about apprehensive. This is the tasawwur, and affirmative information. This tasdeeq, and how it leads to uncover their unknown domains. How it leads to uncover their unknown domains. How can we come into a state of affirmation? How can we be convinced whether this particular argument is a sound argument or an unsound argument? By understanding the premises and by deducting the conclusion.